Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon, live from Riga. And as usually, spring is an opportune time to look at what lies ahead this year. Then let's take a look at what is in store for Rail Baltica this year. As it happens, officially the spring has started, but we are greeted by snow this morning in Riga. We woke up to all the land covered in white snow, so maybe it's the last chance to go and enjoy the winter as well before the heat strikes. But let's take a look at what we have planned for this year. I will introduce you to what procurement approach and plans we have for 2023, followed by my colleagues later this afternoon going into more specifics on some of the topics. So I will take you through the procurement policy key aspects and topics. And what this will include is some of the key elements that we have in the policy and also expectations towards the suppliers. Then we will take a look at the supplier survey results. It's an annual survey that we've run for the 5th year already, so we have a good comparison to show to you. And this is, in a way, feedback from us on the basis of the feedback that we have received to us from the market. So this is something that will be valuable to see how we are perceived at RB Rail regarding our procurement activities and practice. And last but not least, we will briefly take a look at also the procurement activities going on this year. But first, let's take a look at the procurement policy. And to understand the policy, it's also important to understand the structure. We have rather a complicated project structure with multiple implementing bodies across 3 countries. And this is also the reason why the policy itself is a little bit complex as well. So we have an overarching procurement policy, which we call the Common Procurement Standards and Guidelines for Rail Baltica, in short CPSG. And this is something that is applied across the project by all the project implementers. Now we have the implementers in different countries, and there are 4 main implementers. The joint venture RB Rail, then EEST, who is the project implementer in Latvia, Rail Baltica Estonia, who's the project implementer in Estonia, and LTG Infra, who's the project implementer in Lithuania. And so also we have different procurement legislation that applies. To RB Rail and EEST, the procurement law of Latvia applies. To Rail Baltica Estonia, the procurement law of Estonia is applicable, and LTG Infra undertake procurement activities on the basis of the Lithuanian procurement law. And this is the reason also why we have separate procurement policies under the overall umbrella of the Common Procurement Standards and Guidelines, whereby each of the companies also has their own specific, company-specific procurement policy. Now, if we talk about the CPSG, or the Common Procurement Standards and Guidelines, then the main aspects from the project side are fairness, free competition, transparency, equal treatment, non-discrimination, which we would like to believe are self-evident, actually. Then value for money, of course, and in that we talk about not just the money side, but also the value side. So the value for money has two key aspects. It's the value that we get, and then we also talk about the money side, how we get it and how we maximize the value. Efficient use of resources and standardizing our ways of doing things. Common sets of minimum requirements for qualification. This is also something that we have a rather standard approach on. Then social and environmental sustainability, also anti-corruption and avoidance of conflicts of interest. So these are the key aspects from the project side. Let's take a look at also what we expect from our suppliers, from the supplier market, what the procurement policy sets as expectations towards that, and what is our latest view in terms of the expectations towards the supplier market. Best market practice application, as always. We need the suppliers to deliver the project, to come and offer their goods, works and services. And of course we expect for the project of the century the best market practice application. Then, in terms of workforce, we expect the workforce to be treated fairly and equally, meaning freedom of collective bargaining, there being no forced labor, no child labor, equal treatment of the workforce in its true sense, making sure that the wages are reasonable, that the working hours and working conditions are reasonable, and all this is also legally sound and is aligned with the general market practice as well. Then in terms of health and safety, we expect our suppliers to have a handle on that, to have a proper management in place for health and safety, especially for anybody that works out on site, for construction companies. So that is one of the really important aspects that we have as well. Traffic management goes in a way hand in hand with site and survey management activities. And there it's important to keep in mind the local residents as well, not to have overly disturbance towards the local inhabitants. So to make sure that safety is minded, and also to make sure that that local inhabitants are taken into account in the activities that are taking place. Respect towards human rights, no harassment, no harsh or inhumane treatment. And we would like to think that this is also rather self-evident, at least in the world that we present on the Rail Baltica project. And this leads us towards the sanctions topic as well. In terms of the unfortunate event of a war against Ukraine, sanctions have been applied. To date, we have many sanctions packages already applicable. At the time when we started this analysis, the beginning of last year, regarding possible restrictions and sanctions from the project side, there were, I believe, 2 or 3 sanctions packages that were being discussed. Now there are 11, and this is something that we feel very strongly about, and we believe that our supply base also needs to understand that we feel strongly about it, and needs to also have a handle on the application of the sanctions. So we expect no Russian, Belarusian suppliers or supplies in our contracts and supply chains. And this is something that we have or will have requirements for in the future contracts, as well as in the current procurement activities already we have. And we expect also our suppliers to turn attention to that, and to make sure that they don't involve any companies or suppliers from those regions. In addition to that, we expect also our suppliers and contractors, who are the experts in their market segment, to apply risk mitigation measures, and to make sure that they have risk governance in their organization, meaning that they're able to mitigate supply chain risks, they are able to handle subcontractors on their sites, and take appropriate measures if anything were to happen in this uncertain time in regards to any of the suppliers or subcontractors that they have engaged. And this goes actually in advance even of the engagement to make sure that there is an understanding of the market, where the market is heading, and to already in advance mitigate these risks by involving the most appropriate subcontractors. Respect towards the environment is also something that we believe important, and this is also engraved in our procurement policy. And what this includes is attention to chemicals and hazardous materials, wastewater and solid waste management, air emissions, wastes and recycling, and also noise and dust. And there will be more specific requirements, of course, in any particular contract where they are applicable as well. And last but not least, ethical conduct, which we would like to believe is self-evident, but we see that it's not necessarily always so, because we are a large project, and we see many suppliers also coming from many different countries and having different approaches. But on our project, we have a zero tolerance against corruption and conflict of interest situations. And we have an obligation to report such instances if we see anything untoward taking place. No gifts and hospitality, so please do not approach us with any such kind of offers. There are also, at least under the Latvian procurement law, restrictions, post-employment restrictions in place for people that make decisions and the people that can be in the procurement commissions. Then respect for business ethics and moral behavior, including also the way how our suppliers behave and the values that they exert as well in the procurement procedures. So we would like to see no attempts to damage or skew competition through our procedures, and no disruption to the procurement process if there is something to do with trying to influence, let's say, one's competitors. The official procedures, let's say the procurement procedure or the appeals procedure, are not intended to that. If we see any activities as well, we have to address it and we have to report that. So what we would like to see is, of course, open competition, free, fair, transparent competition. If there are true and significant issues, we want to know them. We need to be aware of them, and we are very much willing to address them with our suppliers. This is one of the reasons why we feel strongly about having post-tender debriefs with key tenderers as well. Especially on our key tenders, we offer this opportunity for the reason to allow our suppliers to understand why we make certain decisions and how the rules and regulations of the project work. So this is the main part of the supplier or expectations towards our suppliers from our procurement policy. There are many details included in that policy, so please take a look at our website. We have it published on there. So the common procurement standards and guidelines are published on the website and freely available. If you have any questions, you can always contact us and ask us. If you have feedback on something, similarly, feel free to do that. Now let's take a look at also the supplier survey results. And the supplier survey is something that we have run for 5 years now. It's been live since 2018. We have always been open about the feedback as well. So regardless of the results, we have always shared the feedback back to the market as well. How we, as RB Rail, are perceived as a procurement organization by the suppliers. The survey is always open to potential and direct partners and stakeholders, and it's anonymous. So anybody that wants to give us feedback through that survey has always been able to do so. Since we are now 5 years since the first survey, we also have quite good averages to share and compare. This time we ran it at the end of last year. We got 40 responses back from 19 countries. Sorry, 14 countries, and 19 questions were on procurement. Let's take a look at the statistics as well. So we had 14 different countries participating. We had 43% of the respondents were from Baltics. And from other EU countries, we had 54%. Also, some were outside of the EU or the European Economic Area. And the main respondents naturally are from the supply of materials, construction and design, which corresponds very well with the activities that we are undertaking. As to the size of the organizations that responded to this survey, we are glad to see that all different sizes of companies are represented in the respondents, from small to medium to large enterprises. And the engagement that the suppliers have had with the project has been mainly through international conferences, seminars, or procurement activities. And to look at the overall summary result, then we can see on the right-hand side the KPI graph that indicates that The overall satisfaction from the supplier side with our procurement activities is 73%. We see a drop in the satisfaction, but we note that also this might be due to the start of war in Ukraine and the energy crisis, which have quite severely impacted the market. And perhaps as a contracting authority and a large project, we have not been able to act so quickly. So there are definitely learning points for us to improve how we procure and how we apply flexibility. From the point of view of information, where information can be found, and we see that still the website, the Rail Baltica website is the key source for information, but also the newsletters. So for anybody that wants to be continuously aware of what we do in terms of procurement activities, please feel free to register on our procurement newsletter as well from our website. A little bit more statistics regarding the survey. Tender process administration. The feedback is that there is 78% satisfaction with the way how we administrate the tenders. Regarding technical questions and answers, we have improved continuously across the years. So the satisfaction has been 83% with that. And the average across the years is 74%, which is a very good result. The procurement requirements and forms, which is how tenderers understand, how easy it is to understand what we are asking and how easy or difficult it is to fill in and submit the forms. The satisfaction average across the 5 years is 78%, and in the last survey it was 80%. So it's a rather consistently high result that we have achieved, and we have also a practice of continuously improving, reviewing the forms, improving the forms, understanding where there are shortcomings, and improving the ability to supply information and improve the ease of submitting procurement proposals. Technical specifications, the result has very slightly dropped from last year, so the satisfaction is around 75%. Overall, across 5 years, we have improved the quality of specifications, but as they get more complex, as the project gets bigger, they also become more difficult and more complex. So this is probably reflected also somewhat in the result. Regarding contracts, we have somewhat improved regarding the satisfaction. Overall, I would say also here the satisfaction level is rather consistent, that we produce a relatively high quality documentation regarding contracts. And in terms of the ability to meet procurement requirements, we saw a slight drop after the COVID period. And then we were not really fast enough to adjust the qualification requirements. We undertook a change in our procurement policy and eased up the requirements a little bit, and we see that this has had a positive impact on the last year's results as well. And in terms of equal treatment, we see that there has been a drop in the suppliers' perception as to whether the suppliers were treated fairly and equally throughout the procurement process. So this is something that we will be looking into more deeply as to what and why has happened there. So I wouldn't want to speculate too much, but we have seen that there have been very complicated tender processes and large tender processes that we have run over the past year. And it hasn't always been easy to do that, especially in the market turbulence that we've experienced. So maybe that has had a certain impact, but this is something that we need to look into more closely. And in terms of the supplier satisfaction as well, one of the key aspects that we evaluate is the willingness to return to our procurement exercises, and we see that that has continuously been over 80% throughout the 5 years. So last year, 83% of the suppliers that responded said they would come back and participate in our procurement exercises also in the future. That was about the the supplier survey, and I would like to thank very much all the suppliers that responded. This is something that we have done annually, and that has helped us a lot in terms of improving our procurement practice, understanding where we are, and going forward with improvements. Last but not least, let us take a look as well quickly at the procurement activities that we intend to have or are having this year. So 2023 is seeing mostly activities that have been published last year. And we have big procurement activities ongoing already. In terms of design, we have 3 large design packages that are being procured in Lithuania, Vilnius-Kaunas, Kaunas-Polish border, and Kaunas-Urban node. Then we have 2 very significant and large procurement packages in terms of electrification for the entire project and command, control, and signaling. And my colleague Aiga will tell you a little bit more about them later on, where we are and how we're doing. And consolidated materials. So we are procuring the framework agreements for consolidated materials, being the materials for laying the railway, rails, ballast, sleepers, and turnouts, for instance. So these are large packages that take a lot of effort and resource to procure also from our side. So these are the things that we continue with to procure and finalize the agreements. So all that said, this year we will see more administrative and supportive type of procurement activities from RB Rail. And the procurement plan is being updated as we speak, actually. So the updates are appearing on our website today and tomorrow. So please do check our procurement plan on the website. You have the link on the slides as well. And please do keep in touch with us. So in terms of the wider sense of procurement, my colleagues from the national implementing bodies will give more insight and understanding on what will be happening in each of the countries from the joint venture. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to present to you today, and please do take a look at our website and register on our newsletter and come and participate in our tenders. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kristjan, for the great presentation. I hope also our viewers found it really valuable and great. But while you were presenting, we received a few questions, so hang on for a few minutes more for some questions. First of all, one of our viewers would like to know, the question comes in 2 parts, in how big scale there are green public procurement tenders in Rail Baltica, and if they are less than 50%, why Europe's Commission goals, which were set in 2008, are not met?
So green, this is a good question, actually. Green is applied in different ways. Now, the question is it engraved already in the technical specification? So, in other words, is the work already done by specifying what we require, or do we have specific tender conditions, let's say evaluation criteria, or do we have certain qualification requirements? So in our common procurement standards and guidelines, in the qualification requirements, we have a standard requirement for the environmental qualifications as well. And in some tenders we do apply additional criteria, but a lot of the work is actually being done by the technical teams by already establishing the conditions. So it applies in different ways, and sometimes also there is additional discussion during the implementation with the suppliers as well.
Thank you. Second question, sorry for asking, don't want to throw you under the bus, but it was our most asked question. Nearly 10 viewers asked it. Rolling stock procurement tender, what and when? Can you share some views on that?
Rolling stock is currently not our procurement plan. Definitely there will be topics to be addressed, so we would expect that also our beneficiaries will share some information on that soon enough. From the joint venture side currently there are no particular news to share on rolling stock as such, but the work is ongoing in the background, and I'm sure that soon enough we will hear more information on this.
Excellent. And just to also sum up, a lot of our viewers are asking, they are interested in the promotion of the public procurements, and any tips from your side for large procuring authorities to get into our procurements?
Okay, so if I understood the question correctly, it's about how to get into our tenders, yes? There is obviously the ability to get in touch with us directly to understand what any particular tender contains or means on our procurement plan. There is a lot of information on our procurement website as well regarding who we've already contracted, to understand what is the range of companies we are working with, to understand what might or might not be the subcontracting opportunities. And of course, we publish our tenders on our website, on the procurement system, and it's possible to get in touch through that. So we don't have any particular kind of hurdles to be minded, but I would suggest that anybody that is truly wanting to get involved with Rail Baltica, please do, if you have trouble registering or understanding what to do, write us, call us, get in touch with us on LinkedIn or by other medium, and ask us specific questions we can answer. And we always help our suppliers, so that's for sure. I would say there's no particular hurdles, but I would suggest to get registered on the procurement system early.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kristjan. Thank you for your presentation and the answers. You're free to go. Won't torture you anymore with any more